How's everybody doing this morning? Good? A little more lively. We need some coffee, right? A little bit more coffee. My name is Stephen Hunt. I'm a solution architect with Quest Software. We're going to be talking about bring your own device and what it really means to IT and how Quest Software can help enable IT departments support things like bring your own device, consumerization of IT. Sometimes I feel those are becoming dirty words in a lot of situations, but it's relevant. It's something that we have to deal with. So we hope that these solutions can actually help you facilitate some of this. So clearing the air. I get asked this quite a bit, this conference and other things. Can you tell me anything about the Dell acquisition? No. If I knew anything, I couldn't tell you. Everything that you can get is on the public website. Latest news has been put out there, so I don't know anything. Sorry. So when we're talking about bring your own device and consumerization of IT and things that are happening and how we're evolving in this computing world, the user's changing, the way they do things is changing. I know from my perspective, what I did 10 years ago is entirely different than what I do today. I'm a remote work-from-home user. I use a whole slew of different types of solutions, VPN, terminal services, or remote desktop services. SaaS applications, I use my own device. I have an Android tablet that I use. I have an Android smartphone that I use. And a lot of users are really starting to be empowered in this way. Things like iPad is so prevalent, it's coming around, everybody's trying to use it. But just being connected to your network, once they get connected, that doesn't really, do a whole lot. What can you do then? What can you do to make sure that you can facilitate these users to be able to empower them to do what they need to do? So, the whole concept here is that users aren't using that traditional desktop. You're probably seeing Macs come up in your environments consistently, iPads, Android systems. And users are working in different places. Myself, I'm a remote user. People are always walking around doing different things. They're working from a coffee shop. They're working from home. They're working from their grandmother's house, wherever it is. And they need to be able to be productive wherever it is they are, satellite offices, home office, regardless if they transition back and forth. And so IT's got to be able to deliver that productive environment securely, on demand, dynamically, to ensure that they can stay productive in this ever-evolving world. So this whole concept of these new users and these new devices and the locations they're at, we call that the user workspace. It consists of all the user's applications, the user's data, all the different devices that they're going to use, all the potential peripherals that they're going to use. You guys all have been here at a conference and at a hotel. You're potentially using the business center and you need to print something out. How can IT enable you as a traveling user to be able to facilitate your needs? And facilitate all the different devices that you're potentially going to encounter. It may be a kiosk device that you have access to that you can log onto a website and print something. You've got to be able to facilitate this for the end users. At least to be able to allow them to be productive. But still, they've got to maintain their own, their own personalization. It started as users wanted to set their own desktop wallpaper. They've got to have that personalization to their environment. They have to feel like they're in control, that they have the power. But we in IT, we know we just got to give them a little bit to make them happy enough, so we don't have to manage an environment that is too rambunctious. It's going out of control. It's they're getting too much power. They're doing too many things. We want to empower them to be able to do the things that they need to be able to do, be very productive, but still maintain that control. So that's a fine balance. And that's what we feel that we do here at Quest Software with our user workspace management, is to be able to facilitate that fine balance between the user personalization, what the user can be able to do with this whole new realm of devices and different types of applications that they have available to them, and allow IT to still be in control, to still be able to manage and deliver and be secure in what they're doing for these end users. So this is an example of some Quest user workspace management solutions working together. And I intentionally don't have any product names up here. I'll tell you about the products here in a minute. But it's important not what the product's called, but what the product actually does. So the first circle there is you need to understand what end user applications are in your environment, understand where they're at, what they're doing, how many people are using them, who's using them. Are you within license compliance? Do you have the right set of licenses to be able to empower these new users? So you have to really understand what your applications are and understand the landscape. And then from there, you have to be able to continue to evolve those applications. You have to be able to update them. You have to be able to update the environment that those applications live in. You have to be able to move to new technologies, to be able to virtualize. A lot of people are talking about VDI today, even though that's another dirty word in the industry lately. But it's real, and people are moving to all these different types of environment, and IT's kind of scrambling to get an idea of what they need to deploy and what they need to do to empower the users. So being able to understand how you can migrate those applications to these different environments and still maintain some control there. So that's the second circle there. Third circle there is deliver virtual apps and desktops. So when we start thinking about things, users using their own devices, they're coming in with iPads, they're coming in with Android tablets, they're coming in with MacBooks. It's the great age of Apple, and people are always buying MacBooks. My wife and my kids, they all have Apple products. I swear them off, but everybody's using Apple products, maybe except for a select few for some reason. But we have to be able to facilitate that in some way. So, how can we deliver business productivity to these users when they're in these situations? We feel that virtual apps and virtual desktops can help facilitate that. And then supporting consumer devices. You need to be able to actually, in some instances, manage these devices, do certain things with these devices that you can give the end users that business productivity, that corporate standard information that they need to have, while still allowing that device to be their own. A lot of people, when they think of mobile device management and I'm going to bring my iPad in there, well, then IT tries to take over the iPad. And if you've ever tried to do that, if you've ever been in there, the users aren't too happy about the fact that you want to be able to control their device completely, fully. So the ability to be able to control what you need to be able to control is really important. So these are all different Quest solutions that can be able to facilitate that. The one on the left is Quest Workspace Asset Manager. So we can actually facilitate the rationalization of your application footprint across your environment. We can help you with software metering. We can integrate natively with the different configuration systems out there. So if you have data out there in Config Manager, or you have data out there in Altiris, we can actually use that data to help rationalize where these applications are living, what they're doing, who's using them. The second bullet point there is Quest Workspace Changebase. This is an application compatibility and migration lifecycle tool. It can help you do two different things. It can help you understand how to migrate your applications based upon a compatibility with different target environments. It can also help you facilitate application lifecycle management. So you're constantly introducing application updates into your environment. You're constantly introducing OS updates into your environment. How does that affect the applications the end users are using? Most people don't know unless they have to go through extensive UAT testing. So, the ability to be able to understand what that is in a very short period of time is very important. We do that with Quest Changebase. The third bullet there is Quest Workspace Desktop Virtualization, formerly known as vWorkspace. I just call it the artist formerly known as. But the concept with that is you need an enterprise class system to be able to deliver these applications virtually and these desktops virtually to these devices that are coming into your environment. Or the ability to be able to deliver these environments to maybe legacy hardware and legacy operating systems, but still be able to move forward with that productivity for your users. And the last bullet there is Quest management extensions for mobile devices. So we can facilitate iOS, Mac OS X, and Android devices through System Center Configuration Manager. We can extend your Config Manager implementation to be able to manage those different devices and actually be able to provide what you need to be able to provide from a Mac, like a laptop. You can actually do operating system deployment. From things like Android tablets and iPads, you can actually facilitate different profile information, different applications, but still allowing the user to maintain control of their own device. So those are some of the UWM solutions that we have with us today, and those are the concepts that we feel that can help empower you with those. So the Let's talk about two of the solutions today. One is Quest Workspace ChangeBase. I'll just refer to it as ChangeBase. The other one we'll talk about is Quest Workspace Desktop Virtualization. I'm just going to call it vWorkspace because it's ingrained in my brain. So what's new in our latest version of ChangeBase? We set up a new dashboard and some new UI configuration. So it allows the user, the end user, the person that's working within what we call the workbench, the ability to very quickly see what's going on. As they import these packages in here and they assess the compatibility, they're going to be able to understand what, very quickly what's the state of that application with regards to that assessment that they made. Let's see here. Within the dashboard, we have a couple of different things that we put in here. One of them is an ROI calculator. So you can basically see, based upon your application portfolio, what's it going to cost you to be able to do a migration project? How are you going to be able to, how long is it going to take? What's it going to cost you? And then what is it going to cost compared to using something like ChangeBase? And another portion of it, you can actually configure, based upon the application you're importing, the assessments that you did, and the different technologies you potentially use. Windows 7 64-bit, maybe I want to deploy this with RDS. Maybe I want to virtualize this application with AppV. You can see it in a very quick pie chart view what the application state is that, red, amber, green. The ability to understand, is it good to go, no compatibility? Is it an installer-based issue? Is it a code-based issue? In the bottom, you can actually track the progress of the project that you're working on. So you can see how many applications that you've been assessing, how many applications that you've automatically fixed, how many applications that you potentially have virtualized. And then one of the really, what I feel is one of the most powerful parts in here is the ability to give you next step information. So not only are we going to tell you that there's a compatibility issue, we're also going to tell you what the detailed information is associated with that, how you can replicate and actually create that issue and see it real time, and then how you can fix that issue. If it's an installer-based issue, how you can fix the installer. If it's a code-based issue, how you can actually fix the code. If it's a homegrown application, give that to your developer. If it's a vendor application, you can solicit a hotfix. Maybe it's just an upgrade, but it empowers you with the knowledge that you need to understand what's going on with your application and what you need to do with it. And then we can automate the application virtualization process. So we can actually support Microsoft AppV, Symantec SWV, and VMware ThinApp. And we go through the sequencing process automatically for you. So let's say you've assessed your application against those 3 different types of virtualization solutions. And then you've determined which one is the best fit, or you're standardizing on one of them. You know what the compatibility is. You've got green on all of them. You've fixed all your problems. And now you want to virtualize. Well, I know some really, really good packagers, and they're probably going to be able to do about a half a dozen packages in a day. We can do about 100 to 125 packages in a 24-hour period. And we're doing it in an automated process, a standard process. It's repeatable, it's constant. We eliminate that human error aspect of packaging. And then we introduced a new project wizard. So what you're going to see in here is a step-by-step role that you need to take from the start of your project to the end of your project, from figuring out which reports that you want to assess against, figuring out what packages you need to import, potentially converting any legacy installers, executables, batch scripts, things like that. We can actually convert those to an MSI database, and you can use that long term for installing. Just moving on through, so you've got a step-by-step process that you can follow. It helps a lot of packagers be able to facilitate their project and keep them on track. And on the left side, or the right side, you'll see here when I bring up the workbench in a little bit, it's actually an online help menu. So if they're like, okay, I need to do this part, how do I do that? They can click on the link and it'll tell them how to go through the process of actually doing that. So let's get to the real part of it. Let's do a demonstration so you guys can see ChangeBase in real time. So this is what we call the workbench. And here's the new project wizard. So as you can see, I've gone through some of the steps. I've imported my report groups. I've imported my installer packages. I've actually done some legacy conversions. If I wanted to do browser application compatibility assessing, I can import browsers, or import web applications to understand how that's going to interact with a browser. Then I need to assess my packages. I potentially need to fix my packages. And then if I want to, I can virtualize my packages. So we can run through each one of those steps, and it'll take you to the section of the workbench that facilitates that step. So importing a package into ChangeBase is actually really relatively simple. There's a couple of different methodologies that you can do. One of them is just a drag and drop. But if you have a large application portfolio, that may not make a whole lot of sense. You may have thousands of applications that you need to import, so we support a batch loading process. Or one of our new capabilities that we put in here is the ability to crawl an application portfolio folder. So let me pull that up real quick. And what this is going to do is it's going to look through this directory and determine, based upon which ones that I say I want to auto-select, it'll find the packages out in that directory. It'll also compare what I actually already have loaded in the workbench and determine which ones I need to load above and beyond that. Right now, all I have selected is my standard installers, my MSI databases. If I wanted to go find all of my legacy installers, I could select those as well, and then import those in for conversion. If we had any MSTs associated with these MSI databases, actually identify the ones that are in there. If there's multiple ones and we're not sure which one you should utilize, we're going to flag that one and say we need to review it, so you can then determine which ones you want to import with that package and assess with it. So it may be departmentalized transform file that you need to assess with the overall package, so we can determine what those are. So what I'm going to do is import my tried and true package, because it doesn't take a whole lot of time. If you guys want to see this in a larger scale, see what else is going on, you can always get in touch with me, and I can show this to you. But in the interest of time, I'm going to import my tried and true Orca. It's a very small package if you've ever used it, and it comes in very, very quickly. So I browsed, I found my application, now I need to import it. So just click over here on import, and it's going to import any of the packages that are loaded up at the top and ready to import. So what we're going to do is give a progress report, progress window of how long it's going to take, roughly what percentage it's done. And like I said, as you see, Orca goes very fast. What we're doing is we're running this on a SQL database backend. So we're loading this MSI database into our SQL database, and then we can run that information against our reports and determine what the compatibility issues potentially are with that application. All right, so there, Orca loaded, and as you noticed, I've already ran this prior to coming in here. So Orca hasn't actually been ran yet, but the rest of them we show a bunch of amber and red status within the workbench. And if you don't know what the red, amber, green status, or what we call the RAG status in ChangeBase is, green is applications that we didn't find any compatibility with. Amber are install-based issues that you potentially have, and we have 90+% automated fixes for those. So we're going to create a transform file for that installer and resolve the issue. Again, if we don't have an automated fix, if it's a manual fix, we're going to give you next steps information. And then red is a code-based issue, maybe API call, something happening with one of the libraries, and we're going to give you again that next steps information to determine how that needs to be utilized. So then assessing your application is something as simple as selecting the reports that you want to run, and then selecting the packages that you want to run against, and you click assess. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to reassess all of these because it would take a few minutes. It all depends upon the size of the package and how much information is associated with it. So a lot of people always ask me, how long is this going to take? If I have 1,000 applications and I'm going to run it against these types of reports. Well, it really depends upon what's the size of the application, what's within the database, how much install information are we actually determining there, and then depending upon the different types of the reports you're running, which ones you actually want to scan against. So I use the famous consulting answer, it depends. Once you've assessed your applications, then you can run some of our canned reports in here. One of the ones that most people find really, really compelling is the profile report. So this is going to show me, at a very high level overview, all the packages that I assessed, what is the red, amber, green status or the RAG status against the different reports that I ran. So I ran this against Windows Server 2008, Windows 7, Windows 64-bit, basically XenApp/RDS or vWorkspace, and AppV. So we're going to be able to determine real quickly, just right here, you can see that we have quite a bit of applications that are red within when we assess them against AppV. But we have quite a bit of applications that are green within 64-bit, and we have some amber within RDS and Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008. So if I run my postfix report, you'll see how this changes between the amount of ambers that are in there. So if you remember correctly, quite a bit of these two columns and most of this column here was amber. Then our postfix, we see that they're all turning green. That means we have automated fixes for all of the issues that were associated with those packages in that target environment. So here's our dashboard. And this is a very interactive dashboard. The executive summary is, again, what I was talking about. You can run your applications against different reports and then determine, based upon those different types of configurations, what is the status of those applications. So if you notice, part of this is gray. It's because I imported an application, but I actually haven't assessed it yet. And then the rest are red, amber, green. So you can get a very quick visual of a before and after associated with the different types of deployment that you would do with these applications, what's going to happen. So over there in the far top left corner is Windows 7 64-bit with AppV packages. So you can see that 40% of those are code-based issues that we would have to have some manual remediation done. 53% of the packages that we imported were amber, and 53% of them had automated fixes. And then you can drill down into this and actually see some more of the red, amber, green status. And remember I was telling you about the next steps information? Well, I come down here in my package report. I can look at the issues that I have and then link to my next steps. And again, we're going to tell you how to reproduce the problem, and a detailed explanation of what the problem actually is, and then what you need to do to resolve that issue. If there's any information that's out there within a Microsoft knowledge base that is pertinent to the remediation or the issue, we'll actually link that information in our report. Let me go back up here to the top. Go back to my application status, go back to my executive summary. And so I was talking about ROI earlier, and you can determine the cost associated with your application migration project that you may be going underway. You can determine what your application portfolio is, how many applications, how many desktops you have out there, the ELAs associated with doing remediation of the different complexities of applications, and then the cost associated with them. And so you can kind of see, based upon what locale you're in, since we're in the US, I have a US dollar selected by default, but you can change that to whatever currency that you're actually locale to. And it'll give you an idea of what the cost is. And then based upon the change-based product, I just like to manipulate the cost. Don't be afraid, that is list price for the high-end edition of change-based, but you can configure the cost associated with change-based and then immediately see what that project's going to cost you in terms of manual versus automation through change-based. And then the bottom gives us our progress summary. We can see that I've imported a total of 15 packages. I've assessed against 14 of them. I've fixed 6 of them. I haven't done any legacy imports, and I haven't actually virtualized anything yet. So what I'll do here is I will actually virtualize Orca. So if I select my application that I want to virtualize, I click virtualize. What we're going to do is we're going to kick off a virtual machine in the back end. We're actually going to run through the sequencing process for AppV. We do hide the process, but if you're running VMware Workstation, you can actually see it spin up. In our next version, we're going to have support for Hyper-V as well. So you can run your Workbench off of multiple Hyper-V instances, have that talk to a Hyper-V box, and actually spin up your virtual machines. And so what you'll see here is it's going to walk through the step, and it's giving you a progress bar of what's going on. And if you notice, my VM actually kicked off. So in the background, it's going through that sequencing process. It uploaded the application into the VM, doing the automated process based upon best practices for sequencing. And then we're going to export that application back down to my Workbench and revert that snapshot back to a clean image. Let me pull up the export directory. So I'm doing this one with AppV, and what we'll see is once the completion is done, we'll actually have a folder pop up in this directory with our new Orca that's been sequenced with Microsoft AppV. Taking a little longer than I would anticipate. Real quick while that's going on, before we go on to desktop virtualization, does anybody have any questions? I like to have an interactive session, so feel free to ask any questions real quick.
Is that cost that you put in before you change that for desktop?
Yes. So ChangeBase is licensed on a per-seat basis. So you would license your environment for ChangeBase. If you need to do like a migration project, then we leverage our partner community to be able to facilitate that. They typically do like on a per app basis. And so as you see, it finished the virtualization process. And there's my fully sequenced application ready for my streaming server. See, I don't think I missed anything. All right. So now let's switch gears and we'll talk about vWorkspace, or Quest Workspace Desktop Virtualization. So this is an enterprise-class desktop virtualization solution. We can facilitate connecting through Windows desktop virtual machines, physical blade workstations, physical machines, terminal services, RDSH. That can be connected to by a whole wide variety of endpoints: Windows, Mac, Linux, Java, iOS, Android. And all the thin client vendors out there have our installers available to them. But there's some unique things that we do as far as integration with some of the virtualization platforms that we released in 7.5, the previous version, and 7.6 that was just released recently. One of the things that we did in 7.5 was introduce what we call Hyper-V Catalyst components. So there's two things that really make up Hyper-V Catalyst components. One of them is HyperCache, the other is HyperDeploy. HyperCache allows us to reduce the storage I/O requirement when virtualizing through Hyper-V up to 90%. And I can show you here in a minute. We actually give you a HyperCache report. We give you the numbers associated with I/Os that would be facilitated through storage I/O and what we're doing to cache that and what that percentage change is. And then HyperDeploy allows us to replicate those virtual machines across all the Hyper-V nodes, and while still allowing you to spin up virtual machines very, very quickly, even though the disk doesn't exist on the node itself. And then it facilitates an ability to automate the provisioning and re-provisioning process. So I'll show you here in a minute, we can actually provision and re-provision hundreds of desktops in matters of minutes versus hours. We did a study where we ran through the base out-of-the-box installation, and we were able to provision hundreds of desktops in the matter of 10, 15, 20 minutes. I can't remember the exact number. Whereas the closest competitor could come to us was the same amount in roughly about an hour or so. So you can see the difference in the amount of time that you can actually spin up these virtual machines. And then as you see here in this, the average IOP requirements for the desktop test that we did, for all of those, I think you can barely see the number. It was an average of 600 IOPS required for the spin up, the provision, and the ability to connect to those virtual machines versus our competitors out there. So you can see the IOP requirements, the time to provision and re-provision. We've made drastic changes to be able to reduce all that for you. One of the other things that Hyper-V Catalyst components do is allow you to leverage direct attached storage for your Hyper-V host. You don't have the expensive requirement of a SAN for a virtual desktop deployment. The one thing about that I will say is we consider that for a non-persistent pool. For persistent pools, you're probably still going to want high availability. You're still going to want to be able to transition, so you'll probably have a full, more redundant system for that. But for those non-persistent pools, which is the lowest cost capabilities of desktop virtualization, that's what we like to facilitate here. One of the things that we introduced in vWorkspace 7.6, or Quest Workspace Desktop Virtualization 7.6, is user workspace context. So a couple of things that we can do. If you look here at the bottom of the screen, we actually provide quite a bit of information about the user that's connecting in. We'll tell you what type of connector that the user is using, what version it is, what connection status. Are they using our EOP optimization? Are they using RGS? We do broker RGS connections. What's the latency associated with that connection? The estimated bandwidth that user has. The device type that they're connecting in with, the device operating system, the service pack, and if they're coming in through our web portal, the website name that's associated with it. So a lot of this information can help you understand where your users are coming in from, but then we can also leverage that information and determine, based upon who that user is, where they're at, what they're coming in from, what resources are we going to give them, what desktops are we going to give them, what applications are we going to give them. So we can determine, based upon the connector type, we only want to give certain applications that work in a good form factor for a tablet device. So we may want to give them a desktop that's resizable, an application that can work in that type of form factor. But some of the applications that may not work in that form factor, we want to reduce that. They may have to connect in. They know that they need to connect in through a larger form factor device to be able to access those applications. So you as IT can actually provision those in a certain manner to be able to allow that based upon those different scenarios. And then we took our enterprise class monitoring and analytics system, Foglight, and we built Foglight for virtual desktops. We released that a couple of versions ago. But in this version, we actually integrated that into the console. One of the things that we've been very, very keen about is a single pane of glass for management for this entire system. So the ability to manage your RD session host, your ability to manage the virtualization layer, your ability to manage your website, manage your diagnostics environment. We want to put that all in a single pane of glass. So we did actually integrate Foglight for virtual desktops into our vWorkspace console. So there at the very bottom, I'll pull it up here in a little bit, but you can actually see what's available. And we give diagnostic information based upon the virtual machines, the terminal servers that are out there, all the vWorkspace server components, our universal print server, our universal profile management server, our inbound connections. So we have an SSL gateway, we have a web portal server, and even the virtualization layer. So we can actually report back what's going on in the Hyper-V environment, what's going on in potentially the VMware vSphere environment, depending on which hypervisor you're actually utilizing. We can provide diagnostic information based upon that. And again, this is built upon Quest Software's Foglight platform. So if you're not familiar with it, it has a whole host of different application and platform monitoring capabilities, and that's what we built this on top of. One of the things that we added in 7.6 is Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 support. It is experimental. Because these operating systems are not GA yet, the code could change on us, so we didn't want to add full support where we were liable for anything that actually Microsoft changed on us at the last minute. But the one thing that there's a few things that we do allow, and this presentation is going to go out, so you guys can have a link to this URL that'll actually tell you all the things that we support out of box today. Everything else is community-based support, but out of the box we support connecting from a Windows 8 client. So if you actually haven't installed Windows 8, you can connect to vWorkspace with our vWorkspace connector to your back-end virtualization environment. The ability to connect to a Windows 8 virtual desktop, so you can actually run that in your data center and allow your users to connect to a Windows 8 virtual desktop. To install Quest Workspace Desktop Virtualization server components, so our broker, our web server, our secure gateway, all of our different server components, you can actually install that on Windows Server 2012. And then you can connect to a Windows Server 2012 remote desktop session host server, be it virtualized, be it physical. we support that as well. And like I said, there's more information on what we all support as far as Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 in version 7.6 for the experimental support. So let's take a look at it. Oop, that's the wrong one. And actually what I'm running most of this demo on is our vWorkspace platform down in Round Rock in the Dell Data Center. So I'm going to connect to my vWorkspace console. So as you can see, this is our vWorkspace connector. It's called an app portal, and it facilitates all the different resources that we've assigned to the user. And hopefully somebody didn't turn this off in the background while I was getting it set up. That sometimes happens to me. We have a lot of our architects and engineers are in this environment. But I like to have a live environment to be able to show people because it's real time. It's what you might experience in the real world. And so what I suspect is somebody turned off my, my profile so it's being loaded. All right, so while we're waiting on that, does anybody have any questions associated with desktop virtualization? Oh, there we go. Anybody? Y'all are too quiet. I feel like I'm doing death by PowerPoint and death by demo to people sometimes. I always like to have interactions. If I ever come on site and have conversations with you about what you're doing you know, with your environment, how we can help you with our solutions, you'll find that I like to be very, very interactive with our customers. All right, so here's our console at a glance. One of the things I'll show you first here is our workspace context. So unfortunately, because of the screen size, I'll have to scroll over a little bit. But so what you can see here is the different information associated with the user that's coming in, what they're connected to, what device they're using, the IP address, the connector type, et cetera, all the things I showed you in that slide. It's all here and available to you for all the users that are coming across this farm. So make sure that I don't run out of time. I do want to show you, as promised, the fact that we're going to provision 100 desktops. I think I've got about 30 minutes or so, so that's plenty of time. I think we'll be able to do this in about 10 minutes or less. So I'm going to go through the process here. I select my, my desktop group. I've already got one in there, so I'm going to add 99. Actually, you know what? I said I'd do 100, so I'll do 100. I don't want to be called a liar. I'm going to select my virtualization template. What this is essentially a VM, master VM that I've created out there, and then I've installed whatever it is that I want to install, imported that into my console here, and then I can update it and import a new one if I have some changes. This hypervisor is actually running on we're directly communicating with Hyper-V on the back end. But we do support VMware vSphere. We support direct Hyper-V integration. We support SEVMM, and actually in 7.6 we support SEVMM 2012. And we support Parallels Virtuoso. So I'm going to determine which host that I want to move this across, and you can actually see we have options for distribution. If it'll come up. So I can span these virtual desktops across my hypervisor environment based upon the methodology that I want to utilize. Typically what we'll do is we'll set up our load evaluators to determine what the least load is based upon our metrics that we assign. And then we'll allow it to put those out to the Hyper-V host with regards to that. So we know that we're not spinning up a bunch of virtual machines on a host that's got a bunch of users on it and they're starting to get bogged down. So I have my host here selected. I give it a naming convention, so I determine what the name is going to be, and this is actually what we're going to utilize for the machine name and Active Directory. I can tell it where it's going to start in value, tell it how many it's going to increment by, and I can actually reuse the name, so you can determine, hey, I need to know how many I've been using, so if we're doing some auto-sizing and deletion, but I don't want to keep, I want to kind of keep a running tally of the virtual machines, you can see and not reuse the names. And then do my customize my operating system. So this is essentially all your sysprep information. We import it in here. If you already have sysprep files, we can actually import that information in here so you don't have to start from scratch. With Hyper-V and both with vSphere, we have hardware configurations. In this one, we natively support RemoteFX, dynamic memory, and we can manipulate the network adapter so you can facilitate changing up your video adapter from your template. The memory, you can use static or dynamic memory. Set your network adapter information. Or if you click on view on any of these, it'll actually show you the template information associated with that master VM. So I'm going to leave that as it was. And now I can specify if I want to spin this up now or if I want to schedule this later for a task. Maybe I've got a lab and an environment that I need to spin up for a test, and then I can schedule at that time. But we'll do that now. As you'll see here, it'll populate, tell me everything that I'm going to be doing, what the computer name is, what host that it's going to be on, what volume associated with it. So we can place our parent VHD on a certain volume, maybe just a storage volume, and then we can place all of our VMs on a different RAID volume. Right? And now that's going to kick off. So it's going to go through and it's going to create all my virtual machines, all 100 of them, and it's going to span those across the different Hyper-V hosts based upon the load metric, the load evaluator metrics. I always tell my daughter, pronunciate and enunciate. She's 5, and then sometimes I don't do it. So what we're doing here is our console is talking to the hypervisor layer, telling them, here's the commands that we need to issue, here's all the stuff that we need to be doing, go through and facilitate that. So you see here at the bottom, it's going through a creation process. If I'm on the summary tab, it's going to show me everything that's going on. If I'm on the desktop tab, it's going to show me all the virtual machines that are there. This is the one I actually have logged on out there in the demo environment up top, and then we see all the new ones coming in. One of the great things about this is it's going to tell us all the different tasks that are going on. So we can see a task right now, we're in the creation task. We'll click on the log tab. It'll actually show us what the steps are that we're going through. So this, you can get a very quick idea of how long it's going to take you to provision your virtual machines. So when you look at this, it'll tell you the time that it started. As different tasks go on, you'll start to see the log fill up with more information and the different things. So let's see here. We should already have some available to us. What's our memory demand? In this environment, the storage is actually local. It was the quickest way that we could facilitate, and the cheapest way we could facilitate a lab to be able to do these demonstration environments. So I think that the average cost of virtual machines to be able to do this per user would be about $300, based upon the hardware that we've got, the configuration, things that we've got set up. And the one thing about this is I know that the hardware configuration or the hard drive configuration is not the most optimal. I would probably put this in maybe in a RAID 10 just to make it nice and fast, but I guess they didn't want to listen to me. While we're waiting for those to set up, one of the things I want to show you here is what we call our advanced targets. So we saw the different information that we could provide as far as what resources we're going to assign based upon different requirements. So let's say I wanted to create one that's iPad or Android only. I look at my connector type. I say it is equal to, and then I can select my connector type. Select my connector type, there we go. And I want to say only iPad or Android devices. Looks like somebody had that in there. He already had Android in there. So I can create this in an and/or configuration. So let's see here if I edit this one. Do it that way. Selected, finish. All right, so we're going to say this is, if you're connecting in through either an iPad or an Android, I'm going to assign a resource. So I want to assign a managed application. We treat seamless applications and desktops the same way, and I'm going to give it a Windows 7 desktop. I'm going to put that in my applications folder. And now I've just provisioned that group of 100 or so virtual desktops to iPad and Android devices. How are we doing? Seeing a whole bunch of these are powering on now. This one finished in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. We have all these other ones coming up. The one thing you can actually do is you can throttle this information. So I think I've got this set up to do 50 at a time. You could set it to do 10 at a time. You could set this up to do hundreds at a time. So it just depends upon the environment that you're utilizing and what the resources are associated with it. You obviously don't want to provision 1,000 desktops across an environment that couldn't facilitate maybe the network communication, the storage associated with it. So the right sizing, the right setup, you want to make sure that you have all your configurations set to be able to scale out appropriately without crashing your system. The same thing that we can do with virtual desktops, we can also do with session hosts. So I have a virtual machine template that's associated with Windows Server 2012, and I can scale out my session host servers in the exact same manner that I just did with my virtual desktops. So if I need to spin up a couple of more remote desktop session hosts to be able to facilitate maybe a seamless application for a new department, I go through the exact same process. Tell it how many I want. It tells me my template creation information. Tell it which template I want to use. Select the host that I want it to live on. Naming convention. Operating system customization. If I want to reconfigure my hardware, when do I want to do it? Here's the information coming up. And so now I've just set 2 new Windows Server 2012 RDSH servers to configure. And the thing about it is I already have applications set to this group. So now any applications that are configured for this and new servers that I provision are going to be automatically available for the users to connect into. All right, looks like we've got a bunch of virtual machines that have been powered on now. So how long has it taken these to go so far? So in about 3.5 minutes, we've had 20 or so come on. And what this is doing, it's going back to my virtualization environment, finding out what the state of these VMs that I said I wanted to create, and then determine what's going on next. Everything's being able to facilitate through this one console. So my broker management, my remote desktop session host, regardless of what operating system it is, it could be Server 2003, Server 2008, Server 2012, from a virtual desktop, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8. We facilitate that all through this single pane of glass. So all the virtual machines that you would want to spin up, any type of configuration that you want to set up, we're going to do that all through this one console. Good question. So with Microsoft, we're leveraging differencing disks. What we do is we take a parent virtual machine, you create a virtual machine in your standard process, set it up, power it down, we'll then import it in through the console. So we basically are pointing to it to understand that that's sitting on the virtualization layer. And then from there, as we spin up virtual machines, we tell it, hey, we're going to create this. This is the parent VHD that's associated with it. And as we spin them up, we're just doing the differencing disk there. With the VMware vSphere integration, we're actually leveraging the link clone technology. So again, you create your virtual machine image, power it down. In that case, you'll probably want to have some snapshots associated with it. And then from there, you will select both the template and the snapshot. As you spin up virtual machines, it will create a link clone based upon that parent virtual machine. And then Parallels Virtuoso, we leverage the native containers capability. Oh, looks like the last couple are coming on here. Go back to my summary. I can see all of the VMs that are spinning up. Let's see here, 86.101. Just trying to find that last one out there. So we can see the time frame it took to do this. Looks like they're all on. So if I look at my log, I can see that my creation task started at 10:26, 10 seconds, and the finished successful communication, essentially the user is able to log in, completed at 10:33:53. So roughly about just under 8 minutes. I was able to spin up 100 virtual machines that are ready and available for users to connect in across direct attached storage, Hyper-V host in the matter of just under 8 minutes. So these are available for connectivity. I'll show you these are associated with my Win 7 test. Pull up my app portal and I'll actually connect to one of these. And if I do have this set for session sharing, then I will actually wind up pulling my session that's sitting over there in the demo environment. But these are our non-static dynamic desktops, non-persistent. So we could integrate some app-V packages in here. We can actually import our app-V package streaming server into the vWorkspace console, and we can assign app-V packages that are going to spin up inside of the, oh, no, I pulled it from the, the session outside. Let's do this. Log off. I'm sure my colleague out there is wondering what is going on if he was just doing a demo. Let's try that again. So as you can see, I have session roaming turned on. So I already had a session that was sitting out there with my credentials being utilized. I went to another machine, logged on with my credentials, and determined that it said, hey, I have an active session. I need to pull that and let that roam with me. So if I'm coming across from my work machine and I'm going to my home machine, or I went to take the kids to go see grandma and I want to sit down and use her computer and I forgot there's something that I need to do, there's my session that I was working on when I was at the corporate office. So as you can see, fully provisioned virtual desktop. We have our vWorkspace connector integrated in with it, so we're delivering some seamless applications in here. Oh, he disabled that one. I'll fix that. Go to my resources. I didn't see whether it was the application or if it was the group, maybe in the group. It's enabled. Okay, it was the computer group. Oh, wrong one. That's why. Okay. It's because we haven't assigned it. Let's assign that. Yeah, we'll just go into a different application. Delivering calculator. That'll work. Tried and true calculator. Connecting the calculator, so it's actually running off of a RD session host server. So this is my Windows 7 virtual machine sitting in the back end. And here in a second, we should have that popped up. One of the things that's probably a little bit slow about this is I don't think we have any user profile management turned on, so it's recreating profiles every time we log on. So there we go. There is my remote session. And I'm not running on Windows 7. I'm running on Windows Server 2008 R2. Well, that's all I have, guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want to go get a book, VDI Delusions, by Brian Madden, Jack Madden, Gabe Newth, feel free to stop by our booth. Don't forget, we've got a raffle happening at 12:30. So come get your raffle ticket if you already have one. We're giving away a $100 gift card to Groupon, 2 of those, and an iPad. So, and I'm always available if you guys have any questions. Feel free to stop by, ask me anything you like. Thank you.